If you were going to say, I'm going to create a brick and mortar physical business, you would know, hey, I got to invest some money in this. I've got to be willing to come at this and I've got to be willing to do some things. And you would do things like you would get a lease sign and you would have to get a permit from your city because you would have to. They wouldn't let you open without it. And depending on what kind of business, you might have to get other permits and all these things. And people would just treat it that way. And because of that, people get serious. And that kind of focuses the mind on thinking of it as a business. The problem is that in the online space, a lot of people aren't thinking about that because somehow we've been told you can come into the online space and you can build a business and your computer can become an ATM machine and you don't have to invest anything and it's going to be easy and you're going to make tons of money in 30 days. And that's all a bunch of bull. Welcome to the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast, where being a badass has less to do with what you wear and what music you listen to, and everything to do with whether you've got the thriving online business of your dreams. I'm your renegade thinking Harvard Law grad turned online entrepreneur host, Bobby Klink. In my years building my thriving business, the most important lesson I've learned is that being a badass online marketer isn't about secret strategies or ninja tactics. It's about doing the basic stuff right and showing the F up. So each week here on the show, you'll get clear, easy to execute guidance on how to build your online business and a swift kick in the ass or two to make sure you're getting it done. Hey there, welcome to episode 187 of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink. And I'm excited for today's show because we're going to talk about something like a subject that I'm kind of passionate about, which is how do you build a real business that will last for the long term? Now, this is something that I'm passionate about. And in some ways, it's what I've discovered. It's become kind of my new tagline, that's what I help online entrepreneurs do, because I discovered it's something that kind of brings together a lot of the different things I do. But there are a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of things that kind of aren't happening for most entrepreneurs. And so I wanted to talk about how do you do this? Like, how do you judge? Do you have a business that's a real business and that is poised to be here for the long term versus something else? That's what we're talking about today. Now you might be saying, geez, Bobby, man, are you gonna be such a downer? I hope not, but I'm going to give you some information and help you think through what it requires to say you actually have a real business and how to think like a business owner, because I think that's the big thing that a lot of people aren't doing. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. Now, before we jump in, if you didn't catch last week's episode, you might have missed a big announcement. Last week, I announced something brand new. It was a super secret thing that we've been working on since before October, but we really started working in earnest in October on it. It's called BADA Online Marketing University. It's very different from what most people are offering. It is a free, absolutely 100% free program. Right now, it's a single course called Online Marketing Foundations, which walks through kind of how to think about building a business the right way. From kind of stepping back, how do you think about the different pieces? What are the steps you need to be doing? What are the different pieces you need to do to actually be a marketer? And it walks you through how, a lot of people are actually online sellers, not online marketers. And online marketing is actually the path to success over the long term. So it helps you get how you do that, how you make selling easy, all of that stuff. That's in there. You get it absolutely free. But BOMU, right now it only has one course, but it's going to grow because I'm going to be adding courses in there for free. Next up, we're working on one called Online Messaging Foundations, Online Copywriting Foundations, and List Building Foundations. Yeah, that's right. We're going to give away courses about how to build your list and how to write copy and how to find and really kind of dial in your messaging. We're going to do all of that And we're going to give it to you for free, because if you didn't catch last week's episode, I really think you should go listen to it. What I say is, I believe the long-term path to success for those of us who say we are in the online information product business is actually to be in the implementation business, helping people implement, not trying to sell them information. So that's why we're doing it. You can get BOMU, everything that's in there now and everything we add in the future, for free by heading to bobbyklink.com/BOMU. That's just BOMU. So 4 letters, bobbyklink.com/BOMU. And then, once you join it, make sure you're in the Facebook group. My free Facebook group is now all about supporting people as they go through that curriculum, helping them understand it, helping them kind of how do you implement this, etc. So that's what we got for you. Now let's dive in to today's episode. This is something that I'm passionate about the notion of building a real business. And there's a few different things that make me think about it. One, a lot of online marketers or online entrepreneurs are building themselves a job. They're not building themselves a business. And what I mean by that is they're just building something where, yes, I mean, they work for themselves, but basically they're paid on an hourly basis is kind of the way it works. And I'm not saying there's anything against that, but I want you to understand that gives you some risk, and it's not a business, and it creates some problems. So that's kind of one of the things I want to get you out of. And if that's all you want, great. I am not going to try to change that. But if you want a business, it requires something different. But that's actually not the thing I really want to help get you out of. The big thing that I see happening, and the problem, the mindset, all of that's kind of not quite right, is when I see people who it's kind of a disconnect. And here's what I mean. If you were going to say, I'm going to create a brick and mortar physical business, right? If that was your plan, you would know a few things. You would know, hey, I got to invest some money in this. I've got to be willing to come at this, and I've got to be willing to do some things. And you would do things like you would get a lease signed, and you would have to get a permit from your city because you would have to. They wouldn't let you open without it. And depending on what kind of business, you might have to get other permits and all these things. And people would just treat it that way. And because of that, people get serious. And that kind of focuses the mind on thinking of it as a business. The problem is that in the online space, a lot of people aren't thinking about that, because somehow we've been told you can come into the online space and you can build a business, and your computer can become an ATM machine, and you don't have to invest anything, and it's going to be easy, and you're going to make tons of money in 30 days. And that's all a bunch of bull. It just is. And it pisses me off that people are peddling that crap, because it leads to a problem. And so what I want to do, what I want to help people get is be honest with you. And I've said this before, if you're not familiar with this concept of the Stockdale Paradox, it's from Good to Great, the Jim Collins book. He talks about Admiral Stockdale. If you don't know the guy, he among other things, he was a POW during Vietnam. And there was this, he was asked this question at some point: what do you think was the secret to your survival? And he said the people who survived there were not the optimists, not the people who were constantly believing they were going to be freed, next week or next month. It was the people who were realists who said, look, it's going to suck for a while, but the path to freedom, the path to success is through the suck. And he didn't use those words, but essentially that's what he was saying. And it's this notion that the people who ultimately, actually remain optimistic and I would say who succeed in business are the people who are brutally honest about the reality of the present. And that means you have to know these things. And so I want you to be thinking about that. I want you to be understanding those things. Okay. So the first thing you're going to have to do to build a real business, number one, is shift your mindset. If you're in this mindset that you can build an online business without any money, without having to spend a ton of, time and effort early on and investing money, and without, paying for software or anything like that, I got bad news for you. Is it possible that it'll work? Maybe. But chances are pretty darn low. Because the reality is that building a business is going to take time. It's going to take money. And if you have money, you can spend to speed it up, or otherwise you can spend a ton of time. And it's just going to take some time. And what I'm going to tell you, this is something a lot of people don't want to hear, but it's the brutal truth. A lot of the people who have successful businesses these days, and that you look up to, part of the reason why they were successful is they had income from somewhere else that not only allowed them to take care of themselves, but they were able to take some of that income and invest it in the business. But at the very least, they had income that was paying all their personal bills and all of those things, and they made an initial investment in their business, and then they were able to use every dollar from the business to reinvest at the beginning. Like for me early on, I was living off of my law firm. I didn't need my online business revenue to pay me anything. So I was able to snowball it, to let the money build up. And I'm just going to tell you, that's kind of the reality of how it's going to work to build a business and how people have succeeded in doing this. Now, I'm not going to tell you that's the only way you can do it. I'm simply going to tell you that if you're at a point that you're saying, I'm not willing to invest time or money, or more importantly, that you want everything for free, it's going to be tough. Because again, ask yourself, would a brick and mortar business ever say that? No, because they'd have to pay rent. They know that. They're going to have to pay all of these things. They're going to have to pay for inventory. They're going to have to pay for everything. And so you need to have that mindset about your online business too. So that's the first thing. You got to have that right mindset. Now, the second piece is that, again, and this way may sound self-serving, and it kind of is, but it's also true. You got to deal with the legal stuff and the finance stuff. You just have to. Now, again, I'm simply going to say, if you are not willing to invest to get basic legal protection in place for your business, it's a sign of the wrong mindset. If you want your business to be here over the long term, you're going to have to invest. You need to be getting agreements in place. You need to be doing it right. You just need to. It's part of having the right mindset. Now, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on that. You know, hopefully that since I'm a legal guy, I believe in that. That's why I have my templates. If you need templates to get stuff going, you can head over to bobbyklink.com/template shop. You can find everything there. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I want you to hear me. Real businesses deal with the legal stuff. They don't just ignore it. They don't just say, oh, I'll deal with it one day. And businesses that last deal with the legal stuff. So I'll say that. But now I want to talk about the finance stuff. And here's where I don't help with this, but I'm just going to tell you, my accountant friends, my CPA friends, my friends who teach finance for business are going to love me for saying this. If you're not being intentional about finances from the outset, it's going to be really hard to build a business. And I mean, there's a few things this means. You should open a bank account for your business on day one, even if you don't create a separate legal entity, even if you're doing what's called a sole prop, which is not what I would suggest, but even if that's what you're doing, you should have a business bank account. And all the finances from the business should go through that account. And if you get a credit card for the business, fine, but it should be going through that. Now, I'm not going to recommend that you use a credit card early on. I will just tell you, I didn't have a credit card for my law firm or for my online business for multiple years. I ran it through debit cards. Now I have a credit card and I use it to get points, and then I pay it right away. I mean, I pay it before the bill is due each month. But I'm saying that the concept is having all of your business finances in one place is hugely important. And it's important because then you need to be keeping the books. You need to be tracking expenses. You need to be tracking where, what money's coming in, what money's going out. Where is it going? Where's it coming from? All of that needs to be happening on a regular basis because you need to know what's happening, and you need to have a sense and be intentional about what you're spending, because if you're not, you're going to overspend. Now, you might say, well, Bobby, you just said I have to spend money. Yeah, you do. But what I'm saying is there's a difference between spending money and wasting money. And you have to be intentional about how you spend your money, especially at the beginning. Now, I'm at a point now where I can throw $1,500 in an online course because it sounds interesting to me, and that's not really going to affect my business. But early on, I had to think twice about those things. And I want you to be thinking about that too. So you have to look at it, and you have to be kind of managing it. Now, the second part of this of why you want to have it is one of the most important metrics for a business over time isn't like accounting, because accounting, again, my accountants, I'm not even going to get this right. My accountant friends would laugh at me. I mean, accounting is kind of fake, and it's not fake. That's not what I mean, but it's not actually an indication of your cash on hand. And the cash on hand and your cash flow is the most important metric, if you're asking me, in your business. Now, you need to keep your books, you need to see your profit and loss statement and all of that, but the cash flow of, okay, what do we have coming in? What do we have going out? What's in the bank account? What big expenses do we have coming up? If you have something that in 2 weeks you're going to have to spend $1,000 because it's a payment plan on something or that, you need to know that, so you know when cash is going to be going out. So you make sure it's there and all those issues. So understanding your cash flow situation and your finances is a must. If you don't, you're not going to succeed. So again, this is kind of part of this mindset issue. The legal stuff, the bookkeeping, the finance, all of this is part of that overall change of mindset of thinking of it as a business and being a business owner, not someone who's got a hobby or who is playing around on the internet. And again, if that's what you want, that's fine. But if you want to build a business for the long term, you have to be intentional and thinking about these things the right way. Okay. Now we're going to shift to kind of thinking through your business model. And one of the things I want you to understand is that this kind of ties in to that last point of tracking your finances. Real businesses consistently have positive cash flow. And when you're early on, look, I'm not saying you're going to have this. At the beginning, you may not have positive cash flow. You may have to invest. But here's what that actually means, okay? At a minimum, on a monthly basis, your revenue coming in, so the money that comes into your bank account, should exceed your operating expenses most months. Now, you will have some months where it doesn't quite, but that's what you should be shooting for, that every single month, the revenue that comes in that month exceeds your operating expenses. And operating expenses, to be clear, I'm going to say it's okay if you're not considering like big expenditures that are things you don't have to spend on, but you choose to. So for example, it's the stuff that like we redid our website. I didn't need to do that. I could have waited, but I chose to. Now that I don't mind. I mean, when I do something like that is a big project, that is going to exceed my monthly revenue from time to time. Okay. That's coming from cash that's been built up. And we'll talk about that in a second. But what I'm talking about here is that the money that has to go out on a monthly basis for software, for paying you if you're being paid, for your team, for contractors, for all of that stuff, the stuff that has to be paid, the money that comes in every month needs to exceed that. That's a bare minimum. Now, I believe personally that for your business to really be a real mature business, it's not just that the revenue each month needs to exceed it, it's that the revenue that you bring in from sales that occur that month should exceed your operating expenses. And this is a subtle distinction, but what I mean is this doesn't include your payment plan revenue, or it at minimum doesn't include, payment plans from like a big infusion of cash. And what I want to say is this is not, I'm not going to go on a diatribe about not launching. You guys know my feelings on that. But what I want you to understand is that relying on revenue from launches is inherently risky. Okay. That's not me talking. That is not me, saying something to be polarizing. That is just a fact. If you talk to people who value businesses, who do business valuation, what they would say is that if we look at the revenue or the sales for a business, and if we look at the sales and we say, wow, your sales, like 90% of your sales are come in over these like 3 different 1-week periods during a year, they're going to devalue the company. And by devalue, what I mean is like in a traditional business, you will have a valuation of your business that will be some multiple of your revenue or some multiple of a more complicated number called EBITDA, but I'm not going to get into all that. But it'll be some, you have different multiples of either revenue, of profit, whatever, but they have all of these ideas. And it's a multiple. And what they will tell you is if a business's revenue is concentrated and coming from these very limited windows, they're going to value it less. Either they'll give it a way lower multiplier or they'll actually kind of take some of that off. And their reasoning is that there is risk in that. Because basically, if your revenue comes from these, slight hits, what happens if something goes wrong during that little period, right? And that is a big risk on the company. And for a big company, you can see how that happens. But for a big company, to me, there's less risk. For you and me, if that's how we were to make our money, there's all kinds of risk here. First, something could happen in the world that, screws up your launch. That's happened this year in 2020 to many people. Now, some people had good launches, but some people had launches that they were relying on that happened to happen at the worst possible time. Like I knew someone who spent a ton of money launching, and she launched on November 4th, the day after the election. It did not go well. Again, I would say that was bad planning. But my point is that you could have things like that happen where the world events come in and cause a problem for you. That could definitely happen. But another thing could be way smaller. What if you get sick? Literally, for the 2 weeks before my live event that happened a couple weeks ago, Badass Online Marketing Live, I was like, again, I've been pretty good about not quarantining, but self-isolating anyway because of COVID. But I was like, I ain't going near anybody because I couldn't be sick because I had this thing. And I'm just saying, if you launch, what if you get the flu? Or, what if there's a big tech problem? Or, there's all these things. Or, what if you're relying on Facebook ads and your Facebook ad account gets deactivated? There is so many things that add risk with that. And so I'm saying, if you want to launch, great. But if you want to have a business that is rock solid, that's real, that you don't have a lot of risk in, you need to have the launch revenue be the icing on the cake. You should still have a business model that somehow is bringing in sales each and every month where the revenue from those sales cover your expenses. That's how you should be thinking if you actually are thinking, hey, I want to build a long-term business. Because again, that's what I'm telling you. Every person who's like a business theorist would say that's what you should be doing because it's the way that you eliminate unnecessary risk in your business. Forget everything else. You eliminate risk. So that's it. Now, I mentioned before when I was talking about the kind of revenue or sales exceeding operating expenses, that one-time expenses are different. This comes down to the next piece of your finances here, which is that you should be cash flow positive on a consistent basis, and you should be building a cash reserve. The goal of a business should be to have a 6-month cash reserve. If you're asking me, you can choose how long that is. But my point is so that literally if no revenue came in for that period of time, you could survive and cover your operating expenses. And so you should be trying to build that. And that's the money that's sitting there. That's the money that, you should just be building. And then separately, you maybe build up business or build up revenue to say, okay, we've got extra cash reserves here. So we're going to redo the website. We've got cash reserves. So I'm going to make this one-time expense. And this month our expenses are going to be more than our revenue, but it's okay because it's just pulling out of those cash reserves. So that's that piece. Now, the next thing that I'm going to tell you is if you want to build a real business that's going to last for the long term, you need to be building goodwill. Goodwill is a term in the business world that basically means kind of the established reputation of a business or the intangible value associated with a brand. So again, in traditional business, the way it works would be that it's kind of the value in excess of the value of your assets. So there's something about my business that makes people want to value it more. Now, that's not why you need it. I'm not talking about to sell your business. This has nothing to do with that. What I'm saying is that goodwill is the brand building stuff. This is the stuff that builds your reputation. And here's the important piece of it. When you have built goodwill, when you have built a brand, when you have built that good reputation, you'll start to make sales organically. And what I mean is people will hear about you from a friend. You're going to have referral business, or, people are going to ask a question in a group and they're going to say, go to that person. And so that's where all of a sudden you have revenue that's coming in effectively for free. Now, it's not for free. You put in the time, you put in the work in the past, but the revenue that's coming in today is me reaping the rewards of, kind of seeds I sowed years ago, months ago, et cetera. And so that's what if you think about how a lot of businesses outside of our space, and when you think of a business that is a real business, this is what they have done. They are building their brand, they're building their reputation, so they don't constantly have to be, doing direct response, like, hitting people with ads on Facebook and getting to buy stuff. That's not the only way they make money. Now, I'm not saying you don't do that stuff, but what I'm saying is you also have the other kind of sales, the sales where people just come into your store and say, hey, I want to buy your stuff. Can I? And you say, sure. And they buy it. This is where month to month, more than 50%, but at most points, it's more than 60% of the sales of my Online Genius template library. My $1,000 legal template pack comes from people who there is no funnel involved. It's not an affiliate. It's literally, they come to my website. They're not on my list. The first thing that happens is they buy my $1,000 legal template pack. That is from all of that goodwill that I've built up. And the importance of this is when you do this work and, when you do it, you're basically saying, I'm making an investment in the long-term success of my business. And so again, if you think about it, if you want a business that's going to be here for the long term, you need to be making investments that are going to pay off over the long term. And that's what this is. You are making an investment that will pay off over the long term. And you're doing the work now, you're making an investment today that will lead to sales as if by magic 6 months from now, a year from now, 18 months from now, whatever it is. And it gets bigger and bigger because again, what will happen is that becomes a snowball. And so this is the path to ultimate success, is doing that. So again, this is the other piece, like I said, is building goodwill. And then the last thing I want to talk about is you need to be building a business that will work when you don't. And I'm not great at this because I work a lot. I don't take off as much as I should. But ultimately, if you want to build a business instead of a job, you need to find a way so that your business can be making you money when you're not actively working. And again, I want to be clear. I hate the word passive income because there is nothing passive about what we do. But the point is that the income I'm making right now isn't related to work I'm doing right now. And so that's what allows us to do it. So, some of this is about the goodwill factor that I talked about. Some of it is about setting up systems in your business that allow you to kind of, have things happen without you having to do it. Some of it is about building a team. Again, my team is now amazing, so that literally they get things done. I'm like, wait, what? That already happened? And I'm literally stunned by it. And so my most of the things in my business can happen without me being there, and that's pretty cool. Now, some stuff can't, right? I mean, I got to show up to do this podcast, but I don't have to do it live. I had to show up for my live event, no question. When I have coaching, I got to show up for that. There's no question, right? I mean, that is definitely the case. But I'm able to step away, to take time away because I have a team and we have systems that do things. And I'm working on getting this better and better. There's a book, Run Like Clockwork, which we are, I'm trying to figure out how to make that work. And one of the ideas is you need to get to the point that literally you can take 2 weeks. And I think they even say up to a month. Literally, you take a month away from your business and nothing falls off. Now, in our business, that might be tough. My business is built around coaching. So, I would still have to show up for some coaching calls, but I could probably find a way where I could, take a couple of weeks here and there and, it would work. And maybe, all I do during a week that I'm away is do a coaching call. And that's the kind of thing you need to be building because that's where you actually get some time away. And again, I'm saying this, I love my business. I love working. But ultimately, we need a break. And so we need to be doing that. And look, the last piece is there's got to be something in your business that's scalable for this to work. And what I mean is there has to be something that is not you directly trading dollars for your hours. Now, it could be if you're a service provider that you have other people who are working for you, like in the law firm business world where I came from, I like to joke it's a pyramid model. It's not a pyramid scheme, but you have one partner, you have one senior partner, and then there's 2 junior partners, and then there's 4 senior associates. And I mean, you kind of have all that. And so all of kind of the money, you're getting paid well as a lawyer, but also you're making money for the people above you. Right. And so that's kind of the model. And, if you have an agency, that's the way it works. You have people who work for you and you make money. or you have a product like my legal templates that don't require time. They require marketing, but not time. And so you have to find those things that allow you to get some scale in your business and to make it work. So those are kind of those are the things to make it so you can step away. So that's what I've got. So again, to kind of go over the things again, number one, you've got to have the right mindset. You have to understand and be realistic and don't have the wrong expectation that you can, build a business with no money and without having to put in a ton of time. You got to be realistic. Think about it from the perspective of a brick and mortar. They would have to do those things, so you do too. The next thing is you've got to deal with your legal and the finances, because that's what a real business would do. And you have to think about it the right way, et cetera, and be looking at it that way. The next piece is you need to have revenue that consistently month to month exceeds your operating expenses and not rely exclusively on big cash infusions, because those add all kinds of risk to your business. Then you need to be building goodwill, which is making the long-term investments in your business, because you got to be doing that. And you have to build a business that works even when you don't. If you do those things, you'll be on your path to success. So if you want to learn more about, the piece about building goodwill, about how to actually build a business that's not based upon big cash infusions. This is the kind of stuff where you'll learn inside, again, my new free program, BADA Online Marketing University. You can sign up for that by heading over to bobbyklink.com/BOMU. That's BOMU, just 4 letters, bobbyklink.com/BOMU. You'll learn about it. And then, you're going to learn more tactical, strategic stuff over time as we add more and more courses to the university. So that's it. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you again next week. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Make sure to tune in next time. And in the meantime, go out and build the badass business of your dreams.